Hello and welcome to the My Business podcast. Today I'm talking mortgage broking with my special guest, Todd Franzway, your friend in finance. Welcome to the My Business podcast, Todd.
Thanks, Adam.
Fantastic. The crowd loves you already. Hey, look, tell me a bit about your background and your experience in the mortgage broking industry.
Yeah, I've been in the lending industry for 20 years now, and 15 years in my own mortgage broking business, so in various iterations over the years. But yeah, that's
fantastic. So plenty of experience. What motivated you to start your own brokerage business?
Yeah, good question. The GFC had a little bit to do with that. I was working in mortgage management, wholesale lending at the time, where mortgage brokers were predominantly our business customers. And it got to a point where I lost my job, as most people did in the GFC, in the finance game.
Certainly.
And I'd seen all these mortgage brokers that weren't actually very good, didn't care for the customer, and they were making a living. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? Let's have a crack at that. So that was what started the process. I thought that people could be doing a whole lot better for
a whole lot more for their customers and caring a lot more. Okay.
Yeah.
So would that be one of the things, amongst others, that, sets your brokerage apart, from your competitors?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we have an immense amount of customer care. It's do the right thing by the customer always. And not to say that there are many, many other mortgage brokers that do exactly the same thing.
Of course.
So, those were quite a few years ago when they maybe not have been as professional, but
sure.
Industry as a whole is lifted, and it's a great industry to be in. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, real estate and mortgages, it's a hot topic, basically at any time, but specifically with rates rising and the state of the market at the moment. How do you differentiate yourself, and what are the things that you do to provide that extra value to your customers?
Yeah, a big part is education. So customers often don't know what they're looking for, and so we'll break down a lot of the industry jargon and make sure they understand exactly what's happening, where they're at, where they're headed, where we're taking them, that kind of thing. So education's a big part, just making sure they understand. And there's a lot of people that are perhaps good at what they do in terms of mortgage brokers, but we get constant feedback that we seem to be able to break it down and explain it to them.
I love that, because I guess a high percentage of the customers coming to you would be first-time homeowners, or getting a mortgage for the first time, and they don't know the jargon, they don't know the ins and outs. So having someone explain it to them, in simple terms, so that they do understand, because as you hear, people say, for most, it's the biggest purchase they'll ever make. So I love that education is a big part of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just first-time buyers too. There's people that have had mortgages for a period of time and still don't really understand. And and there's a lot of people that go on to buy an investment property, and that's a whole new set of
whole
jargon.
different game.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure. Okay. So as someone who's been in the industry for a while, are there any sort of common misconceptions about mortgages that you come across, and how do you address them? How do you let your customers know about that?
Yeah, there often is, because if people will go on Google, they'll have a look around, or they'll talk to people at the barbecue or at work or whatever.
You get info from everyone, don't you?
And often it's conflicting, and so people come to us and they're like, "Well, I've heard this and I've heard that, and what applies to me?" And some of them will be things like, Johnny at work says I've got to have an offset account, and it's like, well, do you? And it's about asking questions. There's, like I said, the jargon. People will call us and say, I need to refinance my home loan. And on further investigation, they just want some more money to do renovations or put in a swimming pool. And so,
sure.
Just things like that, I think. You need a 20% deposit to get in. Well, no, you don't, but there's Yeah, so it's just people getting mixed messages that might not be applicable to them.
I understand that. It's because you get everyone who's been through it who thinks they're telling you the right thing, but it probably applied to them and their circumstances, and they're not even always right. It's funny you actually bring up that, because one of my best mates from school is a mortgage broker, and I remember having a chat with him. He said exactly the same thing about a client who came to him and said, "Well, I need an offset account," and he said, "Who told you that?" And she said, "Well, it was my brother." He said, "So what does your brother do?" "He's a plumber."
Yeah.
Well, the joke was, he said, "Well, ask him about pipes, not mortgages." So,
Yeah.
oh, excellent.
Yeah,
What are the factors that potential home buyers should consider when when choosing a mortgage? And are there any sort of tips and advice that you can provide about making that the right decision on that?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest is what are the repayments? People say, what's my borrowing capacity? And that's a very different thing to what are the repayments in your family budget. And, and that might not necessarily mean right now. What about in 12 months, 2 years, 5 years? What do things look like? And it's pointless, leveraging up on debt now if you're planning to have children in 18 months' time, So I always come back to repayments are a pretty big factor to consider when doing any kind of lending. So
sure. And you just brought up there too, I think an interesting point about, what you can repay now versus what you might be able to repay in the future of things that are coming, like you said, maybe planning a family, but things that you don't know are coming. How do you talk, a customer through their what they can repay now versus what they may or may not be able to repay in the future?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, no one's got the crystal ball, right? But you always need to look as far ahead as you can, as best you can, right? And, you can't plan for the unexpected, fully, but you can have some provisions in place, and make sure that you might have a cash buffer left and not use every last cent to, really leverage getting into a big home or something like that, So it's just asking all the right questions to understand the customer's journey, and that's the whole idea, is being on the financial journey with them.
Sure. Interest rates, hot topic
Yeah.
at the moment, and sort of feeds into that last question, I guess. Is there a specific formula you use on what the interest rates are at the time you've got a customer coming to you and they're ready to get a loan versus where interest rates could end up? Is there a formula that you apply there, or how does that work?
Well, not a formula as such, and I guess I'd take it back to the whole repayments thing. Like we like to look at the budget and then go, okay, if interest rates do increase another 0.5%, for example, what does that look like for you, and is that feasible? So again, it's not trying to forecast interest rates. That's almost a impossible thing at the moment. It changes by the week, really, what the forecast is. So so it's just looking at what if, can we build that in, and there's some fairly substantial buffers built into the bank's assessment criteria at present, anyhow. So
sure. And how do you go about selecting the right lender to match your client? Because obviously there's the banks, there's other financial institutions. How many lenders do you work with, and how do you go about fitting the right one to the right client?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it'll come down sometimes to the client might have some really quite specific needs, particularly if they're working with, say, a financial advisor, that not all lenders have, and so that narrows it fairly quickly. Sometimes it'll boil down to their personal circumstances. They might have been working in a casual role for 4 months and just returned to the workforce, and so that narrows things right down as well. So you kind of have a look at the overall circumstance of the borrower, also again where they're headed, what are they looking to achieve in the future, what sort of service levels are they looking for as well, because that differs. So there's a whole host of things that would tie into how you would end up with a short list of three or four lenders. Yeah.
Sure. Excellent. Look, probably a little difficult question to ask, but the current state of the Gold, obviously you're on the Gold Coast.
Yes,
You deal predominantly with the local area here.
Yeah.
The state of the market. You don't have a crystal ball, but what are the trends? What are the insights that potential home buyers and investors should be aware of in the region? Because look, everyone has an opinion on the state of the market, but I think a mortgage broker such as yourself, who's been here for so long, would probably have the best insight. You've got your accountants, you've got your real estate agents, you've got your buyers agents, but you deal with all of them.
Yeah.
So what are the trends, and what insights can you give us?
It's been pretty interesting, and I think the one of the biggest things I've taken out of the recent past, particularly post COVID, we've had for some time Southeast Queensland the biggest rate of migration to Southeast Queensland out of any other area in the country, and that's continuing. I from talking to people. It will continue because a lot of the people that have moved up from down south, their friends and family are still yet to come. And what's coming off the back of that is there are areas that perhaps on the Gold Coast may have had a stigma attached to them, but the people that come from down south, they don't care about the stigma. And so they look at the location, what the property is, and they're seeing value. They see incredible value. And so they don't mind paying, and that's the very people that people that have grown up or lived on the Gold Coast long term. That's the competition when you're looking to buy a property, whether it's a first home or an upgrade home, or these people are seeing incredible value in what we've got here. So for the future, I think we've got a fairly vibrant future with the property.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the migration from the southern states. And for anyone listening or watching this, don't quote me on this. I can't say this is true, but I heard it's gone from something like 30,000 a year to 90,000 a year or something, and the trend looks to continue. So it's a great point that you make there. So look, you would have helped. I would say thousands of people get loans over the years.
I'd say I haven't counted, but
possibly tens of thousands.
Yeah.
You've been doing it for a long time. You must have some success stories where you've helped someone out who couldn't get a loan, or tell me a couple of times that of what you've been able to do where it was your expertise and your set of skills that was able to get a customer a great result.
Yeah, okay. There's a couple of themes that spring to mind, right? And I guess one of them is when you have people that have been able to obtain finance easily in the past. We've had a number of occurrences where they've bought a property at an auction, under auction conditions, been into their bank on a Monday morning, and the bank has evidently said, no, we can't keep the finance.
I've always wondered whether that happens.
Yeah, it does.
Because you get told roughly where your capacity is. You go to an auction, it goes a bit high, but you want the darn thing. The hand goes up. What happens there?
Yeah, so we've had then a number of calls where people have said, look, I've no pressure here, but I bought at auction, I've been to the bank, they've said no, I need your help, And so then, it's just about, again, going back, having a look at their situation and working out how to best get it done. And I should touch wood, but to date we have been able to help everyone that's been in that circumstance.
That's fantastic. That must have
that's cool.
That would be very rewarding when you see how our clients react, because your heart would drop.
Oh yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, it would. And
just out of interest, because I'm sure there's plenty of listening who don't know, because I certainly don't. What is the scenario if thankfully you've been able to help all of them, but what if you couldn't? What is the legal?
Yeah, I will say I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding is they'd lose their deposit that they put down on the day, and whether or not there's legal grounds to be chasing them for the remainder, I'm not sure if there's damages or anything like that. But obviously the biggest thing is the loss of deposit.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
But look, fantastic to hear with your skills and experience that that you've always been able to get one over the line. And have you ever had a scenario where you've found someone and where they honestly came to you thinking they really, after having tried other places, not been able to get finance, that you've been able to get them there?
Yeah, we have, and the one that I guess resonates the most is when you get people that have been either told no or never thought they were a chance. We've had a lot of, say, middle-aged single women. Perhaps some of them have been in vulnerable situations, and they, never thought that they'd be able to buy. And when we were able to help them into a home, and we've been able to do that a number of times, they just can't thank you enough, and there's tears and stuff of joy, of course. But
I can imagine.
That's pretty rewarding. That's quite memorable when that happens. So.
I can imagine. So look, again, I don't know whether this is actually the case, but Mondays must be a pretty good day for you when you know that you've gone and helped people secure, a borrowing capacity, and auctions tend to happen on a Saturday. Is Monday a good day? Is that the day that the calls come in? You wait for the emails. You know that there were 8 up on that day, and is that the way it works?
But Mondays are often busy, yeah, and because people will often be making offers, even if they're not at an auction, they'll be making offers on over the weekend, after an open home or something. So yeah, it's always all hands on deck on a Monday. It doesn't happen every Monday, but that's
fantastic.
Tends to be one of the busy ones.
And for someone who's coming up to a time where they're going to need to get some finance to buy a property, what's your advice? What things should somebody be looking for when choosing a mortgage broker? Choosing a mortgage broker. I think ultimately you want to find someone to work with that you trust and feel comfortable with, right? Like. Different people mesh with different people, and everyone's not going to mesh with me, but they'll mesh with someone else. And so it's just finding someone that you're comfortable with, that you feel like they're explaining things to your satisfaction. If you don't understand, ask questions, and if you're not getting the right answers, then that's one thing. And depending if you're looking for someone that wants to work with you, over a financial journey. Make sure they're asking you the right questions as well. If you've just got someone just asking for pure data and nothing else, perhaps they're looking at things from a more transactional basis as opposed to a relationship basis. So, and that's for some people as well. So it's just getting the feel for working with who you want to work with, basically. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, look, I know the answer to this, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners maybe don't. But how much do your customers have to pay you for your services?
Well, generally, we're mostly free. You're right. So there
Explain. How can it be free, Todd?
Free. We get paid by the lenders.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So they don't have to fork out to pay. But there are instances where there may be an application fee applicable, and that'd be very clearly explained.
Sure.
And
Sure.
some brokers charge a fee every time.
Really?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
They do. So
like just to add to their overall, explain to me in what circumstances do.
So say for example, we put together a pre-approval for a borrower, which we tend to try and do most times.
Yep.
So that they're going into the market ready, right? They're prepared. What often happens is they don't purchase something, and they put it on hold, or they just decide not to purchase ever.
Sure.
And so brokers will charge a fee for lodging a pre-approval for their time and expertise. Whereas, we don't do that. So it's an individual business decision whether they do or don't, and there's merit for, merit against. So
sure,
yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks so much for your time and being on My Business today. Some great information, and look, based on what I've heard, I'd recommend everybody head over to see Todd.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks very much.